Have you ever had a close friend cross a line in your relationship? If so, what happened? Story 1. Not sure if this falls under that, but my best childhood friend did something pretty bad to someone else in high school, and that led to me blowing up my circle of friends. There was a girl. She came from a broken, abusive, everything is fine on the surface, rich family. She had some problems with anorexia, depression, and PTSD. She had also been debauched by an ex-boyfriend who is not otherwise part of this story. So this girl made a new friend in high school. We shall call this friend POS, for piece of junk. POS was a good friend of my best friend. I'd hung out with him a few times, but we were just friends. The girl came to trust POS, and eventually she told him all her dark secrets and pains and regrets. POS pretended to offer her support, then turned around and told his friends all her secrets because he enjoyed gossiping and being the center of attention. He also told them not to let it get back to her because then she would stop telling him secrets. One of the people he told was my best friend, and he told me. And that wasn't right. I told the girl everything I knew. Me, some random guy she had only met once before, knowing intimate details about her horrible family life, the stuff about her ex, her eating disorder, everything. She was obviously horrified and felt very betrayed by POS. So she confronted him very loudly and publicly. The most drama I've ever heard of in real life. A lot of people already knew her secrets, so I guess she felt she didn't have much to lose. Anyway, POS went into damage control mode and tried to spin it as me manipulating the girl to get into her pants, and only making her think I knew all those things. Some people believed him, some believed her. My best friend felt that I had betrayed him and sided with POS. This also made it hard to get along when we met up with the same circle of friends. So the end result was my circle of friends somewhat breaking up in the last semester of high school. I missed my formerly best friend for a while. I have never found anyone else with a sense of humor so similar to mine. But ultimately, I couldn't have not told that girl what was happening, and the fact that my friend treated it as just juicy gossip, I guess he wasn't a very good person. I'm not perfect myself, and I certainly regret the price I had to pay for that story, but I did the right thing. If I could go back, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't be me if I had stood by and let that continue. That is a very harsh choice to make. I mean, think about that. If there was something you knew was the right thing to do, but you knew it would destroy the friends you have about you, the ones that you see every day, the ones that you rely on, not just work friends or casual friends, just the deep ones, would you still do what's right? Maybe you find another solution, but if this was the only way, would you do it? Story 2. I was dating a guy for about a month and told my best friend all about him and how much I liked him. My friend and I had tickets to a music festival, and the guy decided at the last minute he was going to come also because he liked some of the bands that were there. Went to the festival, had a great time, and got an Uber back to an Airbnb we had rented for the weekend. Walking in, the guy I was dating went to the room we were sleeping in to lay down. I go into the kitchen to get water, hear a guy yelling my name, walk in on my best friend on top of a guy straddling him. Uncomfortable confirmation ensues. I don't ever comment on anything ever, so this is new for me. For that reason, I gave you the most condensed version I could while trying to have the story still make sense. This happened a year ago. My friend and I had been friends for 9 years. There were a lot of comments about the drinking, and I agree it's not her main issue, and all the drinking does is make her issues worse. My immediate reaction after I walked in the room, because the guy was calling my name, asking for me to come help him, when I saw her on top of him was shocking, and I was instantly furious with the two of them. Also, they both had clothes on. I said something along the lines of, "I don't know what the frick is going on, but I am not okay with this, and I'm not sure how either of you think it's okay either." She immediately got off of him, mumbled, "I'm sorry," and retreated to her room and passed out. I started packing my stuff and said I was leaving because at that point I was so angry I was done with both of them. Guy talked to me for almost an hour afterwards, confused why I was mad at him, and eventually, when I calmed down, realized he didn't do anything wrong. She came into his room unsolicited and called for me to come back the moment it got out of hand. I didn't talk to her for months afterwards. She contacted me and asked why I was being distant. I explained what happened. She didn't remember it, or she claimed, or so she claimed. It's taken a long time, but we're still friends. I've created more distance between us. We don't hang out as much, and I know now she's someone I can't fully trust. As for me and the guy, we've been dating now for 10 months. I was actually kind of surprised that she's still dating the guy. I actually kind of thought that she would just break it off with both of them. It's good that they've got a deeper relationship. Maybe that's the one that's going to lead to something that's more lasting. Who knows if they're going to get married or not. And as far as still being friends with the other person, it seems like she's laying down the boundaries, and she still has some value for her in her life, just not as much as previously was. Story 3. I had one very close friend who was never exactly a laid-back guy because he was very ambitious. I think he saw himself destined for greater things, which was never a problem. I mean, I'm an Asperger's, and I know that I'm a bit different and strange sometimes as well, so we went through thick and thin together and helped each other through rough times. But then he decided to become a banker, and he became increasingly distant. Then he became an employee of the German central bank, and that was when things went really downhill. I drove a couple 100 kilometers on his birthday, hoping for a fun time. It was not. He had a party, and I felt completely out of place. From his old friends, only 2 were invited, anyway, and the rest were his new fancy banker friends. And then we caught him making apologies to them for us, because we came in casual clothing, not in suits that cost half of a month's salary, because we were laid back and were making jokes, because we told stories about our former adventures. He explained to them that he grew out of that and that he had grown up, while we apparently would still need time to find our way. He felt embarrassed. Because of us, apparently a nurse and a geologist were beneath his dignity. Next time we met, he acted like nothing happened and was back to his old self. But after a quite relaxed time, he became a bit nervous and tried to get rid of us with all kinds of excuses. This was explained when one of his banker friends joined the scene. Apparently, they wanted to go out for an evening in town, but we were not good enough anymore to stay around. So I've directly asked him if he felt embarrassed for us. He looked away and said nothing. And that was the end of our friendship. Classicists are weird. How was he planning on trying? It sounds like he was trying to maintain 2 different types of friendships, his old friends and his new ones, but kind of poorly too. Did he think that his old friends would just brush off getting apologized for? I don't know how he was planning to keep this up. It's kind of tragic that he was trying to hold on to both. I think if he wanted to go this route, and he was going to react this way with his old friends, he should have just let go. Maybe at least then there would have been some honest communication. Story 4. My friend who has large boobs, mine are just barely D's, Butcher's were bigger, grabbed my then boyfriend's head, yelled, "Look at my boobs, you know you want to," and rubbed his face into her cleavage. She was sober. She just had a self-esteem issue that made her need every guy in the room to want to smash her more than the other girls. She also knew that I was a bit insecure when it came to her because they'd slept together before he and I dated, and I wondered if my then boyfriend wanted her more than he wanted me because she'd been the one to drop him. Several months later, she would text him things to initiate dirty texts, then get him to break up with me so they could sleep together because she was single and wanted to get laid and he happened to be around. An awful thing for her to do, but you probably also don't want a man who'll drop you at the drop of a hat because a pair of boobs came beckoning for a one-night stand. Story 5. I was in an abusive relationship for 2 years, and in the meantime, I had a strange friendship with a guy who knew my boyfriend at the time. We'll call him Charlie. Charlie would drive to my house and pick me up and we'd go to the park or something. My abusive boyfriend at the time was probably fooling around with some other girl at the time, so he ghosted sometimes and so did I. Charlie had a girlfriend too, and he would even take me to pick her up too. Obviously, that's weird, but she didn't even seem to mind. I didn't have feelings for Charlie, and to this day, I'm unsure he had feelings for me. Why do I say that? Because Charlie would take me to church just so I could be with my now fiancé. Charlie would also take me to the park with my now fiancé. If he liked me, why would he do that? We were super close friends. He would pick me up every day and we would drive and talk. He even bought me a stuffed horse I wanted. He'd buy us pizza and we'd spend all sorts of time together. I even remember one night my depression was getting the better of me and I just cried on his shoulder while he pet me. He was very nice, but a bit odd too. He would always try to steal my phone and had the intention of not returning it. When I wasn't available to go places with him, he would get extremely clingy and talk down to me about my abusive boyfriend. The line he crossed was when he came into my house and started chasing me around the kitchen, threatening to kidnap me. I got the idea that he wasn't playing, even though we were both smiling. I was extremely uncomfortable. My mom heard him say he was going to kidnap me and carry me out of the house. Mom went mama bear on him and kicked him out of the house. I haven't spoken to him since. Too long didn't read? Good friendship during an abusive relationship until he very seriously threatens to kidnap me. Story 6. He told me Pepsi was junk, so I said his Arizona tea was junk. Very, very dark times indeed. Actually, I think I'm going to tell him his new shoes are lame and see what he comes up with in a bit. Jokes aside, the boundary a friend crossed was when she was dating someone, and I woke up one morning, Central Time, she lives in the UK, so it was like 2 p.m. for her, to a bunch of lewd photos and nude photos of her in Discord. I was in awe at first because I'm a pervy boy, but after a few seconds, I came to my senses. I thought to myself, what the hell? And started asking her as to why she did it. She had no particular reason other than she thought it would be fun to do it behind her boyfriend's back, which quite frankly upset me greatly as I had a crush on her. I talked to her for hours after that, but she was keen on not apologizing, so I screenshot our chat, emailed her boyfriend, and let him deal with her in person. I refused to talk to her after that, even despite her efforts to make a couple accounts to annoy me. Heck, she even posted my private Discord, Skype, and Steam names on 4chan after the whole ordeal, if that gives you any extra perspective of the kind of person she really was. I screenshot our text conversation below the lewd photo she sent me and emailed the messages to her boyfriend, not the photos. She sounds like a quality human being. This sounds like the exact opposite of what a nice guy would do. I mean, it says that he had a crush on her. Very brave of him to do the right thing, especially faced with that temptation of all those photos. And in a way, it's a good thing that all this took place online. For all the retribution that she tried to visit upon this person, I can only imagine how much more devastating it would be if they were in real life or in person. I don't know what would happen if she actually knew his actual physical address. Story 7. I had a friend who would occasionally make comments that would make me uncomfortable regarding my appearance and my smile and things. Then increasingly over time, with alcohol and weed involved, we would start making obscene comments. He would purposefully get me high, and when I was almost sleeping, say things like, "Oh no, don't fall asleep. Why don't we just tug each other off?" I kinda found it hard to believe because he had never mentioned being gay or anything like that, although he made a lot of gay jokes. I put that and the few incidents that followed down to him just being drunk. Then one night, he brought round poppers that he'd apparently found and just came right out and asked me to suck him off when we were drunk. I've not been sure what to do about it since. This was months ago now, but I'm still not sure if I could ever be friends with the dude and have a drink with him again. This is not a safe person to drink or get high with. There sounds like a very real chance he would physically shame you if given another opportunity. Please be safe. Story 8. In college, I, female, was friends with a guy who could be straight out of the nice guys for him. He was very unsuccessful with women because of a lack of social skills and no self-awareness. I know that this really bothered him, and I would try to help him out, give him advice, etc. He never actually took my advice and kept repeating the same mistakes, which got progressively more annoying, but there were times that a date would stand him up, which is a really terrible thing to do, or girls would be mean to him on dating apps. So I really did feel bad and try my best to help. I know he was romantically interested in me, but I didn't have those feelings for him. Eventually, because he was bitter about my comparative success in the romance department, he made some really cruel and inappropriate personal attacks over text. That's where I draw the line. I told him that was hurtful and inappropriate, and a day later, I blocked him. I haven't talked to him since. He seems really selfish, and a lot of people saw that in him. I think that's the worst quality to have in a friend and also in yourself. Story 9. In high school, I didn't have a lot of close friends, except for my one friend, Matt. Matt and I liked to smoke weed together, go camping, hiking, talk about science and politics. He was a really cool and smart dude, but he eventually turned down the path of opiates. He started with opium tea, which I admit I did try, but that was all. He soon moved to pills, 80s yuppie powder, and eventually horse. He would always offer me these substances or ask me to come with him to pick them up, so he was less likely to get robbed, I guess. Eventually, I just cut ties with him. I didn't really say why. I just started hanging out with other people because I was scared to be around that junk and to ruin my life. Rest in peace. You did right. There's just too much assumption that since he was on substances, his friends would all be on substances, or at least this particular friend. It's kind of sad that this person had to cut it off because of that reason. Just don't know what else to say about that. It's good that this person stuck to their convictions and didn't want to get caught up in that. Story 10. She kept acquiring more cats. She couldn't afford to spay or neuter them, so they bred, and instead of finding them homes, kept them all while she continued to buy more and more cats. She was living in the basement of a small townhouse. The tiny space was about the size of 3 dorm rooms. In this space, she had 1 dog, a bird, and 18 cats. She couldn't afford to feed them all. I tried to help her and get her food for the cats, but she just used my help to justify getting more cats. I made her promise not to get any more cats until all of hers were spayed and neutered. She said yes, then bought 2 gray kittens. I just couldn't be friends with an animal hoarder. Story 11. I was living with my cousin while in college. Summer break came in, and I was leaving for 2 months for classes abroad. My cousin stayed at our apartment and asked if his friend could crash in my room. No biggie, as long as he's clean and doesn't make a mess. Came back 2 months later, I found my sheets and pillow crispy and covered in muck. Said my curse yous and go to heck. Bought new sheets and a pillow and started looking for a new apartment the next day. Moved out the next month. Yo, that's completely nasty, man. Story 12. My best friend for 6+ years was having an affair with my then girlfriend behind my back. I then forgave him under the condition he'd seek psychiatric help. I'm depressed was his excuse. and he claimed he made an appointment. He never did, and instead invested money into Bitcoin. I basically told him to take off then and there, and he sent me all the messages of my ex-girlfriend talking junk and playing me for a fool behind my back. Left me with severe self-confidence issues, but I'm slowly recovering and glad he's gone. I'm sorry this happened to you, but the Bitcoin part cracked me up. It wouldn't be this site without Bitcoin being involved. How do you make the leap from being told to get therapy to investing in cryptocurrency? Do you just decide that you'd rather have money than have no neuroses? I guess if you have enough money, you stop becoming crazy and you start being eccentric. Story 13. Basically, I had a friend throughout high school. Seemed like a pretty chill guy. A bit of a male member, but so was I, so I just went with it. Between my junior and senior years, though, I went through some pretty major lifestyle changes. Namely, not being a butthole to everyone I met. He, however, did not. The thing that really ended that friendship for me was when he faked being self-unaliving and abusing substances in an attempt to get one of our mutual friends, now my girlfriend, to date him. It was honestly one of the cruelest things I've seen a person do in an attempt to get with a girl. Somehow, though, that wasn't enough, and he still stalks her to this day. Creepy as hell, and I wish I had drawn the line a little sooner. Live and learn, I guess. Sounds more like a goose, to be honest. Those suckers know no bounds. Story 14. Had a close friend who was in a multi-year relationship with a great guy. He treated her like gold. Out of nowhere, she goes on a date with another guy. She tried to explain it as just keeping my options open, and as no big deal, and something I shouldn't share with him. It really changed how I saw her. Jeopardizing her relationship was bad enough, and now you're telling me about it and telling me to keep it a secret? I was happy that she transferred to another department, and we quickly lost contact. They're still together and got married, but I have no idea what their relationship is like. After her transfer, we quickly stopped talking.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 15. We're not close friends anymore, or even many of my friends. I just have trouble cutting ties to someone I've known for 16 years. He was like a brother. We both ran away from home as teens and called each other first. When his parents kicked him out, my family took him in. I was his POA while he was deployed. He stood with me when I got married. Then one night, when we were drinking together while my husband was at basic training, beach bonfire trip, very common with various people, he tried to sleep with me, and let it be known that he'd always wanted more, and asked for more when I said no. Yeah, kind of ended the friendship. And eventually he got married, and his wife dislikes me. And my ex-husband will punch him if he ever sees him again. On a side note, it seems like you still have a good relationship with your ex-husband. Now, this one sounds like the classic nice guy, although he was just able to hide it, apparently. Hide it really well. I don't know how oblivious some girls are to nice guy tactics, but apparently this one just sounds like it came out of the blue. Story 16. A friend came over and I mentioned how little time my fiancé was spending with me and that it was affecting our relationship. I wasn't feeling well and wanted to go to bed early and be alone, so I told her that and went to bed. At 2 a.m, I realized my fiancé never came home and wasn't in bed. Lo and behold, she had waited for him outside our place and took it upon herself to pull him aside and talk to him for hours about our relationship and how I was feeling, and told him that I had asked her to do this. He was bewildered but didn't know what to do or what the truth was, so he just stayed there until he could get away from her. Anyway, when he finally comes in and tells me, I'm livid. I'm thinking, I tell you in passing that I don't spend enough time with him, so you blockade him from getting to me and literally leech all of that time for attention? We aren't friends anymore. Definitely crossed the line. Yuck, what a busybody. Story 17. I work as a volunteer youth leader. Last year, I found out my best friend, who was also a youth leader, was a sociopathic pervert. Gender-based harassment and potentially assaulted nearly 30 girls, a fair few being kids we worked with. He'd choose his targets well, knowing who he could keep quiet and who couldn't, then manipulated them into silence. It only took one person coming out for the church we worked for to investigate him, and everything came to light. Currently waiting for the police to make a move, and hopefully he rots in prison. I hope those girls are going to be okay. Story 18. My friend from high school, later being my coworker, decided to get with my wife's little sister. He was 21 and she was 16. Parents didn't seem to mind, by the way. He came up with lies that I was talking about their mom at work and that I was cheating on my wife with a coworker. Needless to say, they're still together and I don't talk to him at all anymore. But it's incredibly awkward when he's around. Wow, I didn't think I would have got so much attention. You should pee in his shampoo. Story 19. When I was 12 and my brother was 10, I had over one of my only friends at the time. Moved a town over, new school. I was awkward. He liked to throw knives into trees. Odd thing to let a 12-year-old do, but hey, boys are weird and we like ninjas. One day, he threw a knife into a wall in my house. Not that big of a deal to 12-year-old me, but it happened to be a foot away from my brother's head. He knew what he did, thought it would be funny, and said he knew it would be missed. I lost my junk. I literally threw him out of my house and didn't speak to him for years. Respect for being protective of your little bro. Story 20. When I started talking to him, my female friends told me that I should avoid him because he's a creep. Stupidly, I ignored their warnings. We were Skyping once and he randomly started asking me about my kinks. The conversation went in the expected direction from there. Ended up in a short-lived and toxic relationship with him, during which I ended up losing a lot of those friends who were just trying to help me in the first place. Nowadays, he has 3 physical shaming allegations against him and a pregnant white trash girlfriend who thinks I'm a threat and tells me that she's going to claw me. Dodged a bullet there, I guess. Sounds like you got shot and managed to crawl away, honestly. Story 21. He told me that he was in love with me, and he thought I had a right to know so I could make the decision of if I was comfortable still being his friend. 3 years together this summer. Love of my life. I don't recommend this as a strategy. It just happened to work out for us. I would recommend this strategy. This is really the best way to go about having feelings for someone. Kudos to his approach. Make the decision of if I was comfortable still. Story 22. I was physically shamed in high school by a guy in our circle of friends. So when I moved after graduation, I ghosted because I had a toxic home life and had no emotional or mental support. Flash forward 8 years later, after leaving an abusive relationship, I made my first close friend in a long time. I felt like I was finally catching up with my peers, partying and going out and all. She grew up in the city, so she had a lot of friends from growing up. We were tight, but I always had this feeling she looked down on me. She went too far, and after confronting her, she said things like, "You're only my friend because I made you popular." I admit I kind of laughed at that. I hate attention. The line she crossed is, after knowing my past completely, she said, "This is why you have no friends from high school." That kind of broke me, and I don't think she ever realized how much that hurt me. Story 23. A close friend of mine from college asked if he could live with us for a few days while looking for employment in the area. Instead of a job search, he spent his days hanging around the house and taking advantage of our hospitality. He crossed the line when I came home early from work one day and caught him with his hands in my significant other's bedroom drawers, looking for things to steal. That was it. Out he went, then and there. Gross. Story 24. Told me to make a false report against my ex to get custody, and then acted like I was the weird one when I said there was no way in heck I'd do that. Lost all respect for her after that. I am fresh out of family court, where I successfully got sole custody of my child. I am the father. Things have gotten easier for dads in disputed custody cases, but the threat of false accusation is always there. It's much more common than you think, so thanks for not going that route. Story 25. He constantly acted as if his advice were the word of God and I had to do what he said to get ahead in life. Hanging out with him usually involved being lectured, and it was as if I had a third parent. Giving someone advice is welcome, but more or less trying to force someone to do what you think is best for them isn't. I cut contact with him due to something unrelated, but it was the final straw that broke the camel's back. In general, this usually happens when you're friends with someone for a long time and there's a level of familiarity between you both. The problem is, some people end up crossing the line by the advice they attempt to give. Story 26. I had a gay friend grab my junk at a wedding and start saying physically suggestive things to me, and not in a non-serious way. Grabbed my wrist and started licking it. Dude wanted to bang me hard. I haven't talked to him since. I'm straight, and while I take it as a compliment, that crossed so many lines. That's assault, brother. Story 27. She accused me of sleeping with her husband and giving him herpes, who in turn gave them to her. Then I told people, including my husband, this, and tried to tell people that my husband isn't the father of my child. I've done a lot of awful things, admittedly, but I would never sleep with her husband and joke on her. I don't have herpes, neither does her now ex-husband, and my child looks just like my husband. So, now she is alone with herpes. Needless to say, I'm still mad. Story 28. I just got in a huge fight with my girlfriend at the time. She goes to the bar and sees my friend. He gets her sloppy-faced drunk and convinced her it was a good idea to walk down to my apartment and confess her love to me with all her friends around while she could barely form coherent sentences. It was really pathetic and embarrassing for her. I felt so horrible for her. I never spoke to him again. Story 29. I'm a happily married gay woman. Had one of my closest female friends try to express interest in me and cross some physical boundaries. She knows my wife and what a great person she is. It was super upsetting. Friendship ruined, along with some trust in my relationship. It's also worth noting that this kind of junk happens all the time because straight girls like to try and take tourist expeditions with their lesbian friends. Story 30. I had some mental health issues in high school. I confided this in a friend because I was having a really rough time. She used it against me a lot. Whenever I didn't go along with her hogwash, she would make me by threatening to tell people that I cut myself. The line was finally crossed when she physically grabbed me by the shoulders, violently shook me, and repeatedly screamed, "You need me!" That was weird. Story 31. Well, after a few months, I realized this dude has nothing positive to say about anything other than himself. Ever. He crossed the line when he yelled at my girlfriend about interrupting while the men are talking. Burned that bridge about 12 minutes after we got home. Story 32. I had a friend who actually just a few days ago suggested I ditch getting my wife from work to go get her some Buffalo Wild Wings. She's been doing things like this for a bit of time now, but never so crazy as then. She blew up my phone and was acting so desperate over freaking wings. I just decided to drop her. Story 33. My best friend of almost 10 years, who was also my roommate, was arrested last week with over 100 pictures of child porn. He's non-existent to me and doesn't understand why. Hell. One of the shortest stories here, but by far the wildest ride. Story 34. She flat out told me, I just get bored of people, so I just quit talking to them and find new people. Take a wild guess at how that ended for me. Story 35. I did once. I kissed my best friend who was married to my other friend. It was a mess that ended my friendship with almost every one of my friends at the time, and I regret ever doing it. 0 out of 10 would not be recommended. Story 36. I once bit my friend's shoulder while drunk. I don't know, I thought I was a zombie or some stuff. Anyways, I really chomped down on that shoulder, and he turned and punched me square in the face. I deserved it, though, and we're still great friends to this day. Story 37. They sent obscene texts to my crush and told everyone I was a party girl and that I was easy. Turns out my close friend was a jealous, insecure shrew. I'm 20 now and still a virgin. Curse you, Danielle. Story 38. Really close friend in high school. Found out he was talking junk behind my back and about stuff I had told him in confidence and was now using that against me. I just stopped talking to him. You made the right move. Curse him. Story 39. 6 years ago, he confessed he actually liked me for all these years, drunk at a bar just a few feet away from my boyfriend. I just laughed and said he was drunk and ignored it. We stopped being friends a year later. Story 40. Got him a job in my company so he can move to the city his girlfriend is in. Then he started going after my position. Friendship over. Don't work with friends. Story 41. He tried to get my girlfriend at the time to break up with me so he could date her. Luckily, she saw what he was doing. He and I were not friends for long after that. I was pretty torn up by that betrayal. Story 42. Probably when he and my girlfriend at the time came home after going out for the evening, only to find sperm stains on her dress when I was helping her lay down in bed to get over her drunkenness. Story 43. My best friend went no contact because of her abusive boyfriend. A week later, I found her at midnight in front of my house in tears after she'd been to the police to report him, and we're friends again. Story 44. He slapped my butt at a crowded mall and laughed when he noticed people were staring. He couldn't understand why I was angry at him. I wasn't the only incident, but it was the last straw. I dropped him as a friend. Story 45. Yeah, I had a close friend who basically ran off with my then girlfriend. A lot of these friends stuck with her, and I never saw any of them again, really. Story 46. While close might be pushing it, someone I talked to quite a bit went on a drunken sectarian tirade complaining about how slavery should be reinstated. I no longer talk to them.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.